everyone, and welcome back to Zeldisc. Today we're continuing our series of musical references found in Tears of the Kingdom. We are so happy to see that so many of you guys liked part 1. We genuinely never expected our first video to get so much attention. It means so much to us. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We also did want to thank you all for your comments and suggestions. We did end up using a few in this video, but we couldn't get to all of them as there were just so many. We may end up making part 3, so please stay tuned. We also did get a couple comments about how some references were probably just coincidence, and don't worry, we hear you. We just thought we'd cover everything we could, intentional or not. Some references may be far-fetched, but either way, we loved finding them and thought, why not cover them anyway? We did notice that we made a couple mistakes in the last video, but thank you so much to the people who kindly let us know. We're gonna try to make sure our videos get better and better with each upload, so thank you so much for being so patient with us. This video, like part 1, is sectioned up into minor, moderate, and major spoilers, so please feel free to skip anything that you don't want to see yet. Let's start off with minor spoilers. This section includes part from early game. You can encounter all of these within the first few hours of the game, where most of them are located in the Great Sky Islands. Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild share many similarities. Not only do they both take place in the same Hyrule, with the same NPCs, but they also start with a very similar formula. In Tears of the Kingdom, we start in the Great Sky Island, which is basically just this game's version of the Great Plateau. These locations both serve as an introduction to the game's mechanics. During this early phase, players are introduced to shrines, which serve the same purpose as they did in Breath of the Wild, to collect enough power to increase your amount of stamina or heart containers. When Link enters the Shrines of Light on the Great Sky Islands, he encounters Raru's spirit. Link reaches out his hand and acquires a new ability, accompanied by the familiar jingle heard in Breath of the Wild when obtaining a rune for the Sheikah Slate. This jingle can be traced all the way back to Zelda 1, when Link picks up his first ever sword. It's been a staple in the series ever since, playing when Link opens chests and collects items needed for his various missions. This reference is also included in Breath of the Wild, but we wanted to include it anyway. If you've played Skyward Sword, you may have noticed this, but it could be very easy to forget. In Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, Link is able to cook a variety of dishes with unique effects. In our last video, we covered how Link hums the iconic Zelda tunes while cooking, but we didn't mention the sound that plays when you have successfully cooked something. The sound that plays actually stems from Skyward Sword. You'll hear it after Pum makes the huge batch of pumpkin soup at the Lumpy Pumpkin. Raru is a main part of Tears of the Kingdom's story, and being the first King of Hyrule, his theme of course has to have a reference to the OG King of Hyrule's theme. Although it's very subtle, I do believe it's intentional. There's a note in Raru's theme that really stuck out to me. It almost sounds like it's about to start playing the King of Hyrule's theme. The first and third notes sound exactly like two notes that can be heard in the King's theme from Breath of the Wild, but more specifically, the theme that plays when you learn that the old man is, in fact, the king. It's very subtle and I feel like people may disagree, but I do believe it was intentional. Raru's theme is in a much higher pitch, so it can be hard to hear, but please let us know if you hear it. This one is also pretty hard to hear, but once you do, you definitely won't be able to unhear it. At multiple points in the game, we hear the reversed humming that is associated with Ganondorf. We first hear this when we approach his resting place with Zelda, underneath Hyrule Castle at the beginning of the game. While this theme appears multiple times throughout the game, what you might not have picked up on is that it's actually integrated into the battle theme as well. If you listen closely, you can pick up this exact motif playing in a much higher pitch. It's very subtle and there's a lot going on, so it may be hard to hear, but it's definitely there. The Hyrule Castle theme in Tears of the Kingdom contains a rather small but very interesting reference, and it happens to be linked to Death Mountain. If you listen closely, one of the little jingles layered into the theme is actually a reoccurring motif in the series, straight from Zelda 1. It's originally heard in level 9 of said game, which takes place inside the iconic Death Mountain. The other place it can be heard is also in the Death Mountain region, but in Breath of the Wild. At first, we were confused as to why it would be used in Hyrule Castle, but then we realized it actually makes complete sense. Level 9, Death Mountain, is actually the final level in Zelda 1, where you fight the final boss. In some of the most recent Zelda games, the final quote-unquote level is usually Hyrule Castle, tying it all together. Another thing that we realized about the Hyrule Castle theme is that it seems to include a faint and much slower version of the sound that plays when entering a chasm. Let us know if you can also hear it in the background. Now, let's move on to the moderate spoilers. This consists of several side quests, the main questline in the game, and different memories/cutscenes surrounding temples and dragon's tears. A couple of these were noticed by our subscribers in the comments of our last video. Thank you so much to everyone who commented their suggestions. We genuinely really appreciated it. In Tears of the Kingdom, you'll find a variety of enjoyable mini-games that not only give you fun challenges, but also put your creativity to the test. While engaging in one of these mini-games, the Ultra Ball Hall, you may notice a little nod to the minigame soundtrack from Ocarina of Time. It's a very small part of the theme, but it's so nostalgic. When you successfully complete the side quest questline to reunite the stable trotters, you'll notice them standing at all stables, happily playing music together. As they perform, you'll notice how they now play Epona's song or the Lom Lom Ranch theme from Ocarina of Time, along to the stable theme. It's the perfect choice of music for the stable, and it serves as a heartfelt reminder that Epona will always reside within our hearts. Please feel free to skip this section if you have not defeated the Gloom Hands yet, as it does contain spoilers as to what happens when you do so. The Guardians in Breath of the Wild were one of the most terrifying parts of the game, but as most of you know, these have now basically been replaced by the spine-chilling Gloom Hands. We on Zeldisc discovered a pretty cool reference in the soundtrack that plays when these Gloom Hands appear. We found a section that has a striking resemblance to the beginning of the Phantom Ganon fight from the Wind Waker. It's almost as if the music is subtly hinting as to what's to come next. When you eventually grow strong enough to confront the hands head-on, you'll witness Phantom Ganon appearing. In the battle theme that then plays, there's yet another reference to the battle theme against Phantom Ganon from the Wind Waker, the only difference being the tempo is a little quicker this time. In Tears of the Kingdom, a new addition is the inclusion of 2 more labyrinths, one in the sky and one in the depths. Interestingly, both of these labyrinths appear to draw inspiration from other musical themes within the game. The labyrinth in the depths bears a resemblance to the Lost Woods theme from Breath of the Wild, which really mirrors the feeling of being hopelessly lost. Additionally, the Labyrinth in the Sky theme begins with a distinct piano motif. It appears to be the Guardian theme from Breath of the Wild, only this time it's being echoed throughout the walls of the maze. Upon your arrival at Zora's domain in Tears of the Kingdom, you may notice that the statue of Princess Mipha has been replaced. It has been replaced by a striking new statue of Link and Sidon from their mission together in the previous game. Naturally, many of us had probably wondered what had happened to Mipha's beautiful statue, which had once stood in the same prominent spot of the domain. As you progress through the main questline within Zora's domain, you'll discover that Mipha's statue has actually been granted its own dedicated space, named Mipha's Court. This court is perfect for Mipha's statue, with a great view of the lake that the divine beast Varuta used to reside. In the court, you can hear Mipha's theme playing, which is so fitting, and I was almost brought to tears when I heard it for the first time. Something else to mention, the beginning of the Mipha's Court theme sounds extremely similar to the iconic opening title theme of Ocarina of Time. Coincidence or not, we wanted to mention it anyway. Feel free to let us know if you agree. When Link arrives at Gerudo Town for the first time in Tears of the Kingdom, he will notice that the town is completely empty other than the Gibdos that have taken over. The only place that the Gerudo can be safe is in the shelter underground. The theme that plays in Gerudo Town during this phase is called Gerudo Town Unsolved. It's an extremely broken up version of the Gerudo Town theme that we usually hear. In addition to that, you'll be able to hear a reference from Majora's Mask, where the soundtrack really subtly plays the theme Farewell to Gibdos. This haunting melody is played in Majora's Mask when Link uses the Song of Storms to activate the music at the house in Akana Canyon. The version that we hear in Tears of the Kingdom is very broken up and incomplete, making it even more eerie than it already was. If it wasn't for this comment, I honestly think we would have completely missed this, as it's quite hard to hear. So thank you again for all of your suggestions. Another reference we at Zeldisc noticed is that you can hear the beginning of the Gerudo Valley theme play at some point, which is a really cool callback to one of the most memorable themes from Ocarina of Time. When continuing this questline in Gerudo Town, Link soon realizes that he needs to defend Gerudo Town from more of the Gibdos. Link is able to team up with the warriors of the town, and we then get to fight off the horde of Gibdo at the town's gates. In the beginning of the theme that plays during this sequence, you may notice that it sounds very reminiscent of the Gerudo Desert theme in Twilight Princess. It seems that we can only hear the beats in the background from the original. the melody progresses, it transforms into a more lively and energetic sound. This is when we hear a reoccurring motif from Riju's theme that is repeated throughout. Upon defeating the final boss within any temple, you'll hear a pretty little jingle that plays as you collect the heart container. The music is of course the exact same music heard in Breath of the Wild when you also get the heart container after defeating a divine beast. This jingle is also used in Age of Calamity as well. Another thing that this lovely viewer mentioned is how the Colgera boss theme sounds a little similar to Phase 2 of Blizzetta from Twilight Princess. Let us know if you can hear it. I absolutely loved this reference, as Blizzetta was one of my favourite bosses of Twilight Princess. In the 6th memory, the Gerudo Assault, we see Ganondorf preparing his attack using Moldugas. A Gerudo plays a little motif on her instrument that somehow controls the Molduga. The melody she plays sounds very similar to parts of the Spirit Temple theme from Ocarina of Time. Of course, both of these pieces are associated with the Gerudo, adding depth to the significance of the sound. Tears of the Kingdom features a musical reference that plays during two distinct yet interconnected cutscenes. This occurs when the Master Sword travels back in time to the era of Rauru and Sonia, where Zelda currently resides. This reference is heard from both Link and Zelda's perspective, and it works beautifully. First, we can hear Fi, or Fi, I saw the comments, distinctive sound, which can be heard when she wants to communicate through the sword. Fi, the entity that resides within the sword, becomes a key figure in these moments. In both of these scenes, we hear her theme play, from Zelda's perspective in the past and Link's perspective in the present. This reference contains a spoiler to the cutscene shown after beating the 5th dungeon. To avoid any spoilers, we recommend skipping this section. For these next few references, we'd love to thank our lovely commenter. If it wasn't for you, we would not have found so many awesome references here. Tears of the Kingdom is packed with emotional moments, one of them being when Rauru has to sacrifice himself to be able to seal the Demon King, which was the only solution left for them to stop Ganondorf taking over the newly founded Kingdom of Hyrule. These events are explained to Link by Minoru, the 5th sage, who is of course Rauru's sister. When she's explaining the imprisoning war to Link, we're able to hear multiple musical references, the first of which being a version of Rauru's theme called Rauru's Farewell, which in itself we then begin to hear a harmonic rendition of the original Hyrule Castle theme from A Link to the Past, which has a very similar sound to the soundtrack of Twilight Princess, with it being sung by a choir. Later on, it transitions into Ganon's message theme from the same game. This theme is commonly known as Ganon's Tower theme, which is what we will be referring to it as throughout the rest of this video. Following the theme of music related to Ganondorf, we then hear the reversed humming heard throughout the game, for example, when we first approach Ganondorf's imprisoning chamber. Another Ganondorf-related motif plays, and it's what we hear when he first awakens at the start of the game. I'm 99% sure that this motif is heard at other points in the game, I just cannot for the life of me remember when, so let us know if you can pinpoint the other moments that it can be heard in the game in the comments below. In this memory, we finally see Rauru sacrifice his life to save Hyrule. At this moment, his farewell theme plays again. Shortly after, we hear a rendition of the main theme of the series, followed by a different section of Rauru's theme that has been played throughout this memory. As the memory ends, the music then fades into the reversed singing associated with Ganondorf, sounding almost as if it has been corrupted. Minoru then talks to Link a little more, triggering another memory to begin. This time we see Princess Zelda in the past, holding the Master Sword that Link had sent to her from the future. We then get to hear an emotional rendition of Fi's theme from Skyward Sword, which we of course did talk about before. As Zelda begins to realize what she needs to do to heal the sacred sword, we hear an emotional version of the game's main theme. As Minoru has realized that she, too, needs to help Hyrule in the future, we hear her theme playing in the background. This scene is such a beautiful moment within the game, and the music almost brought me to tears. This whole section was packed with references that tied everything together in the best way possible. This next one contains spoilers for the final Dragon Tear memory, so if you haven't seen it yet, feel free to skip this part of the video. Once you have finally found all 11 Dragon Tears, the Light Dragon shows itself and sheds one final tear, giving Link one last glimpse into the past. In this memory, we see Zelda standing outside of the Temple of Time with the Master Sword that we had sent back in time earlier in the game. She then realizes the only thing she can do, her purpose, is to commit the illegal act of draconification by consuming the secret stone. While she says her last encouraging words, we can hear a part of Breath of the Wild's main theme playing in the background. Directly after she swallows the secret stone, she starts emitting a bright light. It's at this moment that we can hear Zelda's lullaby, which originates from A Link to the Past. The lullaby is played in a way which makes this cutscene so melancholic and beautiful. Tears of the Kingdom really is the legend of Zelda. A bonus to this topic is that Zelda's lullaby is played at the end of Tears of the Kingdom's main theme, but this time we can hear her theme being played by the same instrument as the dragon theme from Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. This same version of the lullaby is also heard when she flies skyward at the end of the memory she becomes the Light Dragon. This is such a nice and subtle detail. It's almost as if her lullaby has become a dragon along with her. These next two references have to do with the legendary Master Sword, so if you haven't pulled it yet, you may want to click off. This one isn't exactly a groundbreaking discovery, as it is the same in every game in the series since A Link to the Past, but the theme heard when pulling the Master Sword is of course the iconic Get Master Sword theme. Like we just mentioned, this has been an ongoing theme heard whenever we pull the Master Sword since A Link to the Past back in 1991. Exactly 32 years ago. Zelda's Wish is the name of the memory shown when Link obtains the Master Sword. In this memory, we see Zelda clenching the broken sword in hopes of its restoration while we get to hear her thoughts. In this scene, we can hear Zelda's lullaby play beautifully in the background. Closer to the end of the cutscene, we can hear a little bit of Tears of the Kingdom's main theme play, followed by her lullaby again. Now, we're going to tackle the musical references heard at the end of the game. This contains major spoilers. The rest of this video contains references from the final boss and the scene that plays after, so this is your final warning. As Link traverses deeper and deeper under Hyrule Castle, the music gets more and more intense. Once you make your way through the same area Link and Zelda traveled at the beginning of the game, you'll eventually find yourself up against the Demon King's army. Luckily, if you have finished the game's main quests, the sages will help you in this fight. The soundtrack played during this fight includes several very cool references. The first one is played at the very beginning of the soundtrack. It's the first couple notes from the Guardian theme from Breath of the Wild. Just a few seconds after that, we hear a reference to Ganon's battle theme from A Link to the Past. Towards the end of the soundtrack, there's a reference to Skyward Sword, the dramatic descent theme. This is incredibly fitting, since in Skyward Sword, Link fights armies of bokoblins to reach the bottom of the sealed ground, where the final battle of the game starts. The concept is the same in Tears of the Kingdom, having to fight armies of monsters before getting to the final boss. When Link has defeated the Demon King's army, he can advance deeper into the area that Ganondorf now resides. This part of the game is completely silent, emphasizing the importance of what you're about to face. The Demon King resurrects right in front of Link, revealing his identity. The Ganon's Tower theme, that originates from A Link to the Past, plays in a fearful tone when his name shows up on screen. The battle between good and evil has started. In his second phase, we hear a beautiful part of Tears of the Kingdom's main theme, which almost motivates you as the player to beat the final boss. third stage, we can hear Calamity Ganon's theme from Breath of the Wild, which is also the theme used for the Blight bosses in the Divine Beasts. The only thing differing the Calamity Ganon theme from the Blight bosses' individual themes is that there are different instruments used in each Divine Beast to match the area it's in. Previously, when we heard this theme in Breath of the Wild, we associated it with Calamity Ganon. However, this new information suggests that the theme originally belonged to the Demon King, rather than Calamity Ganon and the Blights. I'm sure this goes without saying, as we all know that Calamity Ganon was created by the Demon King's hatred, but it just further proves that everything that Calamity Ganon was a recreation of the true evil, Ganondorf himself. When the Demon King realizes that he cannot defeat Link in his current state, in a desperate attempt to rule over the kingdom, he commits the irreversible act of draconification. This is such an amazing final battle. The atmosphere and the excitement made this battle so memorable. When we see the Demon King emerge from underneath Hyrule Castle, we hear a leitmotif that can also be heard in the game's final trailer. This was the first thing we heard in Tears of the Kingdom's final trailer, but this time it's much darker. Incorporating parts of the game's main trailer was such an amazing choice made by the developers. I hope they know that these details have not gone unnoticed. We also, like before, get to hear Ganon's tower theme playing as the Demon Dragon's name appears on screen. We also hear Ganon's tower theme from A Link to the Past, being played several times during the fight. Finally, at the end, you hear a little motif which should sound familiar if you played Tears of the Kingdom's prequel, Breath of the Wild. The motif plays at the moment the Demon Dragon explodes, which in turn returns peace to the Kingdom of Hyrule. The same motif was heard in the ending of Breath of the Wild as well, right after Zelda asks Link, "Do you really remember me?" after you defeat Dark Beast Ganon. When you finally beat the Demon Dragon and restore peace to the land, Link's right arm starts glowing a really bright light. Suddenly, he finds himself and the Light Dragon in another realm. When in this realm, some sort of force suddenly lifts his arm. He finds Rauru and Sonia behind him, seemingly using the last of their power to restore Princess Zelda back into her true form. As Link, Rauru, and Sonia use their combined power to save the princess, we hear a familiar theme. Part of the opening sequence of the game can be heard. We first hear this when Link jumps into a lake on the Great Sky Island at the beginning of the game. Once we see that Zelda's body has been restored, we can hear her lullaby. This theme is repeated a lot through the game, but hearing it after being led to believe that she may not return to her Hylian body makes it so much more emotional. After returning Princess Zelda to her true form and leaving the realm where Raru and Sonia reside, Link has to catch her before she falls to the ground, a fate that would make all of this work mean absolutely nothing. You may notice parts from Tears of the Kingdom's main theme being played, almost linking the beginning of our journey with the game to the very end. The name of this theme is called Not This Time, an emotional reference to the intro of the game, where Link failed to catch Zelda. Link is fully invested in saving Zelda this time. And one more emotional touch is that Zelda's lullaby can be heard as we see Link risk his life to catch her. The music played is so touching, and it makes this moment even more emotional than it was in the first place. After the two land in the water safely and get to dry land, we hear Zelda's lullaby playing again. At the end of the cutscene, the music shifts back to Tears of the Kingdom's main theme. If you've completed all of the game's main quests, you'll end up with a post-credit cutscene. This is the secret ending. In this short cutscene, we discovered several musical references. First off, you'll be able to hear a part of Breath of the Wild's main theme. A little after that, we can hear Zelda's lullaby again. When the sages vow to support Princess Zelda and safeguard the land of Hyrule, we hear Tears of the Kingdom's rendition of the Overworld theme from Zelda 1, also known as the franchise's main theme. We then hear Minoru's theme play a little after we hear the main theme. Closer to the end of the scene, we hear Zelda's lullaby play one last time. Right after this, we hear Tears of the Kingdom's main theme play, which then transitions into Zelda 1's overworld theme. The orchestral piece played at the very end is packed with emotions, and it's truly a masterpiece. After this, we see them gazing upon Hyrule with no evil within it. The screen turns to black, claiming its end. Thank you so much for watching today's video. There are for sure so many more musical references in Tears of the Kingdom yet to be discovered, and that means so many more videos for us to make on them. Feel free to comment any references you may know about that we may have missed. If you want to see more, please check out part 1 if you haven't already. It's pretty clear that we have so many more references to cover that we couldn't get to today, so please remember to subscribe so that you won't miss any future uploads. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, as it boosts our channel engagement, and that just means so much to us. We hope to see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye!